So one thing we've done a lot is cover what is happening with litigation against Illinois' gun ban, and we've been tracking that in quite some detail each and every weekday morning. But something else that we may have to work in as well is the ongoing litigation concerning no cash bail in Illinois. It's actually a fixture of what Florida Governor Ron DeSantis talked about when he visited Elmhurst, Illinois yesterday. But this has been an ongoing process dealing with no cash bail. And if you remember, just before New Year's Day, the Illinois Supreme Court had to step in and take up a Kankakee County judge's ruling that the no cash bail provision of the Safety Act was unconstitutional and say we're going to have to put a stay on this statewide while this works through the courts. Well, the state appealed, of course, taking it to the Illinois Supreme Court, and the state's filing their appeal brief several weeks ago on Friday. The plaintiffs, state's attorneys from across the state, suing the state for wanting to try to implement no cash bail, they filed their response brief, and that was on Friday. Now, for the state to respond to the most recent brief, they have until February 27th to reply. But this has been an ongoing concern, and it's something that State Representative Patrick Windhorst several days ago when they were at the state capitol before the governor's State of the State speech, the Republican House held a news conference talking about different committees they were going to be on. While Patrick Windhorst focused on public safety, and in particular, he says that the Safety Act has a storied history of not being good for Illinois public safety.
In the time since it passed in January of 2021, House Democrats have passed 4 trailer bills aimed at fixing the flawed law. Governor Pritzker signed 3 of those trailer bills into law. The reason for the trailer bills was simple. The law was rushed through a process that resulted in a flawed product. As the problems with the law were revealed, efforts to amend and correct the act made their way through the legislature. And with that, we have seen the job of law enforcement officers become more dangerous and harder to do. Criminals are acting more emboldened than ever before. And through a prior bail reform effort, repeat offenders are already being let out of jail with little to no cash bail, and the provisions of the Safety Act relating to pretrial fairness have not even taken effect yet. Our citizens deserve to live in safe communities and neighborhoods where they can live, work, play, and raise their families without living in fear of violent criminals who are back out on the street just a few hours after their last offense. The courts have also weighed in, with the most recent stay of the elimination of cash bail being issued by the Supreme Court. While we await a final decision on the full implementation of the Pretrial Fairness Act portion of the Safety Act, legislatures should be working together to bring forward constitutional solutions aimed at improving our justice system and improving public safety. The purpose of this working group will be to study the law in its current form, bring together law enforcement advocacy groups, crime victims advocates, members of the law enforcement community, and legislators, and craft a comprehensive legislative package that addresses the problems of rising violence, drug trafficking, and addiction, and the administration of justice in our communities and counties throughout our state.
So again, that's Patrick Windhorst talking about how while the courts deal with the Safety Act no cash bail provision, he says that Democrats and Republicans need to come together to tackle this issue as to how to best combat violent crime. Well, I want to hear from you next at 217-629-7970. What do you think? Especially as a new report suggests that the city of Springfield is the second most dangerous city in the state of Illinois. New study finding that. Your thoughts? 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here on WMAY. We'll get to your calls next, I promise. So get those calls lined up. All right, back taking your phone calls at 217-629-7970. Last segment, we heard about the filing that the state's attorneys made in the ongoing litigation about no cash bail in Illinois. With the Illinois Supreme Court taking that up, they expected to hear oral arguments in that case in March. When exactly, not sure. When a ruling could come out, still could be weeks, if not months away. So we'll be watching that closely as the Illinois Supreme Court takes into advisements what's exactly going to happen with the state's no cash bail law. But essentially, you've got plaintiffs saying that the Supreme Court should uphold the Kankakee County judge's ruling that no cash bail violates the state constitution. But the states, through Attorney General Kwame Raoul, saying that the arguments that the state's attorneys from across the state are making are flawed. So we'll see what the Illinois Supreme Court ultimately has to say about that. But all of this, of course, coming together as you've got the national political conversation coming to a head, and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis making a stop in Illinois yesterday, talking about law enforcement, saying that woke policies have taken over for what he says should be the focus in public safety. So here's just some of what the Florida governor had to say when he made a stop up in Elmhurst yesterday to talk about law enforcement in Illinois and beyond.
That you see with this wokeification of law enforcement is passing ludicrous laws like eliminating cash bail. You guys just did that. And here's the thing. New York did this a couple years ago. Everybody said it was going to be a disaster, but they were pursuing ideology. They were not pursuing the interests of the public. They were not worried about the interest of people wearing the uniform and their safety. They had an agenda, and they were trying to pursue that agenda. Well, what happens in New York now? If you have police officer go out, risk their lives to be able to apprehend a criminal, you bring the criminal in, and then they're in front of a judge. And in New York State, the judge is not allowed to consider whether that person's a danger to the community when they're making the bail decision. So what happens? They end up having to just release these people. So then you have the police officer who already had to risk his life to go into a situation to deal with this guy. Then 2 weeks later, gets called in to have to apprehend the same guy over and over again. How is that something that is good for public safety? And so it's been a total failure. Why you guys would be doing it here after seeing how disastrous it's been is just beyond me. But I can tell you this, when I talk to people that come to Florida, yes, some of the main things that you think of, but they are really, really upset about what's gone on with the law enforcement policies, not standing up for law and order. And the New Yorkers in particular come down, and they are saying when they did the no cash bail, all hell broke loose. And that's exactly what you see. You guys are going to see that, unfortunately, in Illinois. People are not going to be safe in their communities like they should because that policy is trying to pursue ideology over public safety. So that is wrong, and we are not going to do that in the state of Florida.
So again, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis making a pitch in Elmhurst yesterday. He's essentially saying that, hey, if you want to come down and be a law enforcement officer down in Florida, we'll give you a $5,000 signing bonus and a whole host of other benefits as well. He says he doesn't have to beg people to come to Florida. He's got businesses calling up saying, hey, we're moving to Florida. But he does say that they're recruiting law enforcement and showing law enforcement that they appreciate what they do down in Florida, highlighting in other areas like in Chicago and elsewhere that he says are bringing about, quote, woke policies for the criminal justice system. Your thoughts on all of this, especially as a new report apparently has Springfield as the second most dangerous city in the state. This coming from a Fox affiliate, Fox 32 out of Chicago, saying that a new study finds that the capital city has seen an increase in assaults, burglaries, thefts, and a high amount of auto thefts. And saying that a lot of people worried about the Safety Act and how that could further increase crime as that measure is tied up in the courts right now and could allow for people on certain types of offenses like theft and drug possession to get out of jail. So I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. How do you think we best approach and tamper down violent crime? And in Illinois, with the no cash bail provision in limbo, with the Illinois Supreme Court hashing out that particular law, how do you think this is going to play out? Do you think that the streets of Springfield are going to be safer with no cash bail in place, or do you think that the streets of Springfield will be less safe with no cash bail in place? And I will note that Sangamon County State's Attorney Dan Wright is one of the plaintiffs in the case that's at the Illinois Supreme Court right now, along with the Kankakee County State's Attorney and the Will County State's Attorney, and there were dozens of state's attorneys that signed on to that to oppose no cash bail. But even over the weekend, you had a 44-year-old that shot at several police officers and took part in a nearly 6-hour standoff. And this was in the middle of a weekend, a nice, sunny, beautiful weekend, and you've got that going on. But you also have just the problem of pop-up block parties that have been a nuisance in years past, late-night shootings outside of downtown bars, people coming from Decatur and going back and forth, and possibly getting involved in some kind of hybrid gang activity, as we've heard about in the past. How do we best handle this? And is no cash bail going to make things better or worse? We'll take a call. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
I think the no cash bail law is going to make things a lot worse.
And how so? Can you elaborate a bit? So what makes you think that?
Because what's going to happen is you're going to let these violent offenders out on bails too soon, out on jail, and what's going to happen is they're going to commit a crime again.
And that will just lead to the cycle, right, of somebody getting picked up, and if they can't afford bail, then they're let out, and they get picked up again on a same or a similar offense. And I think that then you can actually have somebody held. But this is all about innocent until proven guilty, and how that's going to come across in the Illinois Supreme Court will be interesting to watch. But we'll bring you all the latest updates there. As we had Friday, a filing from the state's attorneys saying, this thing's unconstitutional, and the state saying that argument's flawed. So what do you want to see happen? Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Yeah, I think Ron DeSantis doesn't have enough evidence yet to be making those claims.
So when he points to New York City, you don't think that that's enough evidence to support that crime can get out of control if you have no cash bail?
Well, when I worked in the Department of Corrections at the time, we had 38,000 inmates, and of course it's gone up since then. You know how many we let out each year? It was about 24,000.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's been thousands and thousands let out. Even with COVID, there were some that were let out early as well.
No, this was pre-COVID.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, so that revolving door has been going on for decades, and it's not new.
But that's prison. That's somebody convicted of a crime. The no cash bail system is supposed to deal with those who are pending charges. They have yet to go to trial, have yet to be convicted.
Right, but I'm saying the idea that it's going to keep criminals on the street, it's already happening. I mean, you've already got parolees standing in line next to you at the movie theater.
Sure.
So that's not a change. What is a change is the rich people aren't the only ones who get let out on bail.
Right. And that's the argument of those who want to ensure that the no cash bail system survives a state Supreme Court challenge. Another call before the break. Good morning. You're on WMAY. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah. No, but the thing is, common sense is we need to keep these violent criminals behind bars and keep eyes on them.
All right, even before they are convicted. So again, we'll hear all the arguments. We'll bring you the latest on what happens with no cash bail, and it's going to be right here with Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY. Appreciate everybody chiming in. You can always call in live and local at 217-629-7970. One last call. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Hey, real quick, the caller that worked in the corrections facilities, the rich people aren't the ones going out committing armed robbery and burglary and violent crimes. So that's kind of a moot point.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the perspective there. That's why we open up the phone lines to let people sound off and even counter other callers. So appreciate that. It's all part of the open dialogue I hope to foster here each and every weekday morning. It is Springfield's Morning News on WMAY. I'm Greg Bishop. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Just search Bishop on Air and we can connect that way. Be sure to subscribe, like, hit the notification, all that stuff. That way you can stay up to date of what's going on here locally and across the state and elsewhere, wherever you guys are tuning in. All right, it is Springfield's Morning News on WM.